Picture this. It's late at night and you're jolted awake by that familiar urge to pee. You shuffle out of bed in the dark, vision still blurry. You might shrug and think, oh, it's just age, but that's a dangerous mistake. Waking up 2 to 3 times a night is not normal, it's a health red flag. In fact, studies warn that every midnight trip dramatically raises your risk of falling or injury. For example, seniors who void twice nightly had about an 84% higher chance of a fall, and a recent review bluntly states frequent nocturnal trips increase the risk of falls and fractures. In short, that sleepy stumble to the bathroom could easily end with a broken bone or worse, not just another groggy morning. Now think about the numbers. A 2020 meta-analysis in the Journal of Urology found that a 65-year-old who wakes up 2+ times a night has about a 5.5% higher annual risk of falling than someone who sleeps through. By age 80, that gap jumps to roughly 7.5%. Every midnight stumble counts. Even a small fumble on a bath mat or hallway edge can spell disaster for older men. These falls often mean fractures, head injuries or worse. And the danger isn't limited to falls. Nocturia is a red flag for your heart too. Chronic sleep disruptions keep your body in stress mode. In a large long-term study, men who urinated 3 or more times per night were over twice as likely to die from heart disease as those without nocturia. In short, frequent nighttime voids are strongly linked to cardiovascular risk. Each wake-up spikes your blood pressure and stress hormones. Over time, that repetitive strain on the heart and vessels raises risks of heart attack, stroke and other cardiac events. And let's not forget your sleep itself, it's getting shredded. Every trip to the toilet resets your sleep cycle. Researchers literally call nocturia one of the most common reasons for interrupted sleep. The result? You never get a full stretch of deep REM sleep. Day after day, this chronic fragmentation leaves you waking up groggy, irritable and exhausted. Over time, the sleep loss leads to daytime fatigue, trouble concentrating, mood swings, even weakened immunity and metabolic issues. It's a vicious cycle, because poor sleep then drives up blood pressure and inflammation, making everything worse. Men, hear this. Waking multiple times a night to pee isn't just a normal part of aging, it's a warning sign. One Journal of Urology paper bluntly calls nocturia a strong predictor of mortality. In other words, ignoring this symptom could cost you dearly. This pattern demands attention, it's not something to accept quietly. Don't worry. In the next section we'll explain exactly what's going on and how to fix it. Imagine a 3D cross-section of the male pelvis. At the top sits the bladder and, leading downward, the urethra, the thin tube that carries urine out through the penis. Nestled just below the bladder is the prostate gland, about the size of a walnut, wrapping around the urethra like a clamp. In other words, the prostate acts as a tight collar around the urinary channel. In a normal state, urine flows freely through this tube. But if the prostate swells even a little, that clamp tightens on the tube and impedes flow. Now, let's talk about the real culprit behind that swelling. Hormones, not just age. A key player is dihydrotestosterone, DHT, a powerful male hormone made from testosterone. Research shows that even as overall testosterone levels decline with age, the prostate continually converts available testosterone into DHT. DHT then floods the gland and binds to receptors in prostate cells. This triggers the cells to multiply and the tissue to grow. In fact, studies describe DHT in the adult prostate as driving pathological growth, basically telling the gland to overgrow itself. So DHT acts like a persistent, grow, signal that causes the prostate to expand. As the prostate swells under the influence of DHT, imagine that clamp tightening even more. The gland presses on the urethra like a vine squeezing a pipe. Radiology experts note that an enlarged prostate may squeeze the urethra as it gets larger. This pinching effect narrows the urinary channel, so the bladder has to push harder to force urine out. Clinically, this explains the classic symptoms: a much slower stream, hesitancy or dribbling, urgent needs, and the feeling of not fully emptying. In other words, the swollen gland physically chokes the urethra, disrupting normal flow. Importantly, this isn't just getting old, it's a defined hormonal, mechanical problem that we understand and can even treat. For example, we have drugs that block DHT, 5-alpha reductase inhibitors, and when men take these, the enlarged prostate actually shrinks over time. In other words, stopping DHT turns down the growth signal and reduces the blockage. This proves the point. BPH is fundamentally a hormone-driven enlargement causing mechanical obstruction, not an inevitable fate of aging. Understanding this can be empowering. It means there are targeted ways to relieve that clamp and restore normal flow. Your prostate isn't just falling apart, it's responding to specific signals that science knows how to address. Now that you understand how your prostate acts like a clamp around the urethra, here's the critical next piece. Certain everyday foods don't just sit in your stomach. They actively irritate the bladder, increase inflammation, and make that clamp squeeze even harder, especially at night. Let's start with the most surprising one. Food to avoid. Number 1. Dairy. Milk, cheese, and ice cream may seem harmless, but for many men with nocturia, dairy quietly worsens symptoms. Dairy proteins can trigger low-grade inflammation, while certain dairy fats stimulate insulin and inflammatory signaling. That inflammation doesn't stay in the gut, it spreads systemically, including to prostate tissue. There's another issue most men never hear about. Dairy increases mucus production. That thickened internal environment can irritate the bladder lining, making it hypersensitive. So even when the bladder isn't full, it sends urgent, go now, signals, especially during sleep, when nerves are already more reactive. Food to avoid. Number 2. Spicy foods. Chili peppers, hot sauces, and spicy seasoning don't just burn your mouth. They stimulate nerve receptors throughout the urinary tract. These compounds activate pain and urgency receptors in the bladder, making it contract more aggressively. In men with an already enlarged prostate, this becomes a problem fast. The bladder starts squeezing harder, against a partially blocked outlet. The result? Sudden urgency, weaker flow, and more nighttime wake-ups. You're not producing more urine. Your bladder is simply overreacting. Food to avoid. Number 3. Excess caffeine. Coffee, energy drinks, and even large amounts of tea stimulate the nervous system and act as a diuretic. That means more urine production, but more importantly, caffeine overstimulates the bladder muscle. Caffeine also raises cortisol, your stress hormone. Cortisol increases inflammation and tightens smooth muscle tissue, including the muscle fibers around the prostate and bladder neck. So the clamp tightens, while the bladder becomes jumpy and impatient. This is why so many men say, "I'm fine during the day, but nights are brutal." Dairy fuels inflammation. Spicy foods overstimulate bladder nerves. Caffeine pushes urine production and muscle tension. Together, they create the perfect storm for nocturia. The goal isn't perfection, it's awareness. Simply reducing these triggers often brings noticeable relief. And once these irritants are out of the way, something powerful happens. The foods you're about to see can finally start doing their job. Now that you understand the real enemies, DHT and chronic inflammation, the next question becomes obvious. How do we turn them down? The answer isn't guesswork. It's nutrition. Specific compounds shown in medical literature to calm prostate inflammation, slow DHT signaling, and relax that clamp around the urethra. Let's start with one of the most powerful prostate nutrients ever studied. Food number 1. Cooked tomatoes, for lycopene. Lycopene is a potent antioxidant that concentrates directly in prostate tissue. Multiple studies show men with higher lycopene intake have significantly lower prostate enlargement and PSA levels. Here's the key detail most men miss. Lycopene only becomes bioavailable when tomatoes are cooked. Raw tomatoes don't cut it. Cooking breaks the cell walls and unlocks lycopene's anti-DHT effects. For lycopene to actually work in clinical studies, men needed the equivalent of 15 to 30 milligrams per day. That's roughly 1/2 to 1 cup of cooked tomato sauce daily, every single day. Miss days, and levels drop. That's a lot of pasta sauce to eat consistently, which is why compliance is so difficult long-term. Food number 2. Pumpkin seeds, for zinc. Zinc is critical for prostate health. In fact, the prostate holds more zinc than any other organ in the male body. Zinc helps inhibit the enzyme that converts testosterone into DHT. Low zinc levels are consistently associated with enlarged prostates and worse urinary symptoms. The effective dose? Around 15 to 30 milligrams of zinc per day. That equals about 1/4 cup of pumpkin seeds daily. Sounds easy, until you try eating that amount every single day without missing. Most men don't. Food number 3. Green tea, for EGCG. Green tea contains a powerful compound called EGCG, shown to suppress inflammatory signaling and reduce abnormal prostate cell growth. EGCG also interferes with DHT receptor activity, meaning even if DHT is present, it can't do as much damage. But dosage matters. Clinical studies used 400 to 600 milligrams of EGCG daily. That's 5 to 8 cups of green tea every day. Miss a day, and blood levels fall rapidly. And for many men, that much caffeine irritates the bladder, defeating the purpose. Food number 4. Cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. These contain compounds like sulforaphane, which activate your body's natural detox enzymes. These enzymes help clear excess hormones and reduce inflammatory stress inside prostate tissue. Men who eat more cruciferous vegetables consistently show slower prostate growth rates. Effective intake requires at least 1 to 2 cups daily, several times per week. Again, powerful but difficult to maintain forever. Miss the habit, and the protective effect fades. Food number 5. Pomegranate. Pomegranate polyphenols are among the strongest anti-inflammatory compounds studied for prostate health. They reduce oxidative stress, calm bladder irritation, and may slow prostate cell proliferation. Some studies even show improved PSA stability over time. The studied dose? About 8 ounces of pure pomegranate juice daily, with no added sugar. That's a lot of juice, a lot of calories, and a lot of discipline, every single day. So here's the truth most doctors never explain. These foods absolutely work, but only at the right doses, taken consistently. And for most men, eating all of this every day becomes unrealistic. That's why many men look for a more concentrated, reliable way to get these compounds, without living in the kitchen. And that brings us to the final piece. By now, you understand something most men never get clearly explained. Your prostate problem isn't random. It's not bad luck. It's not just age. It's DHT pressure and chronic inflammation, acting like a clamp around your urethra. And we've just walked through 5 foods proven to help loosen that clamp. The science is solid. But here's the honest reality, and this is important. Eating 1/2 to 1 cup of cooked tomato sauce every day, 1/4 cup of pumpkin seeds, multiple cups of cruciferous vegetables, 5 to 8 cups of green tea, and pure pomegranate juice daily, is a full-time job. Most men try. And then life gets in the way. Miss days, and the blood levels of these compounds drop. The inflammation creeps back. The clamp tightens again. That's not failure, that's biology. These compounds only work when they're present consistently, at the right doses. That's why many men eventually ask a smarter question. Is there a way to get these exact compounds, without having to eat like a monk for the rest of my life? And for some men, the answer is a concentrated natural blend, designed to deliver these same prostate-supporting nutrients in precise, daily amounts. Instead of guessing portions or forcing foods you don't enjoy, this approach focuses on concentration and consistency. You take a small daily serving, usually once a day, and your body receives the same compounds used in the studies we discussed. Nothing extreme. Just a steady, predictable signal that tells the prostate to calm down instead of swell up. Over time, as inflammation eases and DHT signaling is reduced, Many men report fewer nighttime wake-ups, a stronger stream, and finally sleeping through the night again. Not overnight miracles, but gradual, logical improvement that matches the biology. Now, to be clear, this isn't about chasing a magic pill. It's about making the science practical. Whether you choose food, supplements, or a combination of both, the goal is the same: lower inflammation, reduce DHT pressure, and give your prostate room to relax. If you'd like to learn more about the specific natural blend I personally researched, including what's inside it, how it's made, and who it's not for, I placed the details below this video. No pressure. Just information. Because once you understand what's really happening inside your body, you get to choose the smartest path forward.